You're listening to the Lanterns Radio Network. We are the network dedicated to empowering the individual, illuminating the truth, defending American exceptionalism, and inspiring future generations. Stay connected and get involved at lanterns.buzz for great radio. Get commentary and news of the day. Lanterns.buzz.
Lanterns authorization code accepted. Logging in. Your access to the HoloNet has been approved. Please stand by.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. You're listening to the HoloNet Podcast here on the Lanterns Media Network. From Phoenix, Arizona, I'm your host, Matt Holloway. This week has seen some things that I really wish I could unsee. Among the two of them, we're going to talk about the omnibus budget-busting bill. And how could we go through this week without discussing the March for Our Lives and the new narrative of Gen Zers or Next Geners, whatever you're going to call them, out there pitching gun control and assault weapon bans. This is the first time that a generation in the United States has willfully rejected their own right to defend themselves. All that and more here on the HoloNet Podcast on the Lanterns Media Network. Stay Stick around.
You're listening to the HoloNet podcast on the Lanterns Media Network. The new conservative resistance begins right here, right now.
I will build a great, great wall on our southern border, and I will have Mexico pay for that wall. Mark my words.
The American people are frustrated because their elected officials don't listen. Well, we're home on the campaign trail. We say we listen. And yet something about this Senate floor, something about Washington, D.C., I don't know if it's the water, something in the air, the cherry blossom, but people get here and they stop listening to the American people.
What we witnessed here today in the Security Council is an insult. It won't be forgotten. It's one more example of the United Nations doing more harm than good in addressing the Israeli-Palestinian conflict.
My duty, and the sacred duty of every elected official in this chamber, is to defend Americans, to protect their safety, their families, their communities, and their right to the American dream. Because Americans are dreamers too.
I want the people of America to be able to work less for the government and more for themselves. I want them to have the rewards of their own industry. This is the chief meaning of freedom. Until we can reestablish a condition under which the earnings of the people can be kept by the people, we are bound to suffer a very severe and distinct curtailment of our liberty.
The chair recognizes the gentleman from Arizona. Thank you, everyone. Thank you. Senators, members of Congress, Mr. Speaker, and Mr. President. You had one damn job. Seriously.
Allied reinforcements have arrived from the west.
You're listening to the HoloNet on Lanterns Media Network. The Millennial Conservative Resistance begins here.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, Lanterns Media Network proudly brings to you the new conservative resistance. It begins right here, right now, with you. That's right, you're listening to the HoloNet podcast. And today, boy, we need those reinforcements arriving from the west more than ever, because as it seems more and more that conservative voices like yours, like mine, are continuing
playing outlawed tunes on outlawed pipes.
That's right. We are out here holding the line against night here on Lanterns Media Network. We are here to fix the machine. So insert your motto or cliche here, but whatever you do, do the best you can, because it's getting harder to do it. Facebook crackdown continues. YouTube demonetization bomb is dropping everywhere. And now this week it appears that some of the most popular gun-themed channels on YouTube are now looking for a new home online, with at least two of the largest gun demo channels turning to Pornhub. Yeah, that's right.
Holy sh**.
dude. That's right. 2 of the biggest gun-based YouTube channels currently on the market are turning to Pornhub because it is a better venue for their content than YouTube. Let that sink in. Well, folks, finally we have all of our sex and violence concentrated on one place, brought to you by YouTube censorship. Good on you guys. I was joking with a couple of friends and coworkers the other day. I said, really, all we need to do now is add cooking shows, and we will have everything that a man typically looks for outside of religion. You'll have your pornography, your guns, and also your food. Toss sports in there, maybe, and I think that is the full endeavor of man outside of the search for truth in God. So, on that note, let's pivot to something a little more serious, a little more sinister in nature, and that would be a clip that I cannot play. That's right, I haven't been able to find actually a censored clip of this guy, but over the week, Mr. David Hogg, I should say Master David Hogg, because he is under the age of 18, this guy has become the center of a firestorm. And I put out a story that's got a bit of traction on theholonet.com. You're welcome to check it out. That is theholonet.com. The story is America is a republic, not a democracy, deliberately to protect us from emotional, irrational reactions like March for Our Lives. And initially the thumbnail had a great big picture of this dude's face, but somebody, she knows who she is, she called out to me on Facebook that it's not a good idea to continue to give this young man his 15 minutes of fame. It may reinforce the wrong image. So I went ahead and I replaced that with the March for Our Lives logo, because she's quite right. You know, this Master David Hogg of Florida, a Marjorie Stoneman Douglas high school shooting survivor, and our thoughts and prayers are with him and all the other survivors, despite how we disagree. He has come out with an expletive-laden interview on The Outline, which I have the link to in the story. I have the video inset, in which he says, quote, "Our parents don't know how to use an effing democracy," corrected for grammar and the cuss. And I have to say, as I said, I have nothing but the deepest sympathy for the victims of every high school shooting, myself having come of the age in the post-Columbine era. Columbine was a very fresh wound when I was a kid, and I have the experience of going through multiple bomb threats during my middle school and high school tenures in which our school was evacuated. They stopped calling the bomb squad at some point because it was so expensive, and they just had the janitors do a walkthrough to look for suspicious packages. So we kids got in front of the Board of Education and protested the school's use of bomb-sniffing janitors, which shows you what the priorities were back in 2002. It gives you warm fuzzies, doesn't it? But anyway, Mr. Hogg said our parents don't know how to use an effing democracy. Well, Mr. Hogg, in response to that, the United States is not and never has been a democracy. We were founded as and still remain a republic in order to protect our freedoms, specifically from people in your mindset. Okay? In Arizona news, Jacob Martinez, who was of late chairman of the, I believe, Teenage Republicans of Arizona, has left that organization and participated in the March for Our Lives in Phoenix, and has suffered some significant blowback as a result. And I respect Jacob. He's a very bright young man. I disagree with him respectfully on this, and I actually posted this story into his commentary on the March for Our Lives protest and told him I respectfully disagree. I believe that anybody who is emotionally compromised is not in a position to set policy. And if you're going to sit here and tell me that a 17-year-old who watched 17 of his classmates and friends get gunned down in cold blood, survived himself, you know, I don't know how close his scrape was, but survived this kind of a shooting. If you're going to tell me that young man is not emotionally compromised, and that the other survivors of Parkland are not emotionally compromised, I don't want to meet the person who's not emotionally compromised by that. I would be emotionally compromised by that. And that is one of the reasons that we have a republic in this country. Because as a nation, we cannot be governed by our passions. Our founders knew this. They knew this well. There's a great quote from Alexander Hamilton in Federalist number 68. A lot of people are going to say you need to turn to Federalist number 10 to look at the difference between a Republican and democracy. I'll get there. Or Republican and democracy, rather. But in Federalist number 68, talking about the Electoral College, mind you, Hamilton writes, "The choice of several to form an intermediate body of electors will be much less apt to convulse the community with any extraordinary or violent movements than the choice of one who was himself to be the final object of the public wishes. And as the electors chosen in each state are to assemble and vote in the state in which they are chosen, this detached and divided situation will expose them to much less the heats and ferments which might be communicated from them to the people than if they were all convened at one time in one place." This outlines the fact that the Electoral College exists just as our Congress exists in two houses, in the form of the House and the Senate, to separate the government from the heats and ferments of the people. Unfortunately, with the growth of technology, this is really no longer the case. This is becoming harder and harder to maintain, and the left seems to be driving us further and further toward true democracy, which is little more than mob rule. It is little more than mob rule. It easily degenerates into oppression by the majority. And that is what our founders sought to prevent. There are numerous pieces of evidence to point to. I pointed to the CIA World Fact Book, which at no point describes America as a democracy. It describes us as a constitutional federal republic. A democracy is effectively collectivism. The majority always rules, even and especially when the majority is stirred into a frenzied state through fear, hatred, ignorance, and bigotry. You only need look at Germany in the 1930s and remember that absolutely everything the Third Reich did was legal. The Reichstag voted for it. Okay? They did not do anything without the permission of the governing body of Germany because it was too much a democracy. It was not a republican form of government wherein the government is insulated from the heats and ferments of the people, and vice versa. Think about that. A republic, conversely, is dependent upon the powers of government being restrained by the laws that enshrine and protect the individual from the whims of the majority. In practice, this is why we have a bicameral legislature, why initially the U.S. Senate was a state-appointed body, not directly elected, why to this day they are re-elected less frequently. This is why the American people do not elect the judiciary, and why, as I've written before, if you remember my article on the Blaze, you do not actually, nor were you ever meant to, vote directly for the president, because we have a republic, not a democracy. It was an intentional move by our founders to protect us from emotional, irrational, reactionary movements. Among these, in present context, Occupy Wall Street, for example, Black Lives Matter, Antifa, and now March for Our Lives. These are reactionary movements, and we must protect our government and our rights from being unduly influenced by said movements. That is why our government is designed to move slowly and deliberately in most instances to prevent the whims of the majority, the fever-pitched emotions, from overruling the rights of others and the rights of the individual. And that is what could happen here if we do not take quick action to reinforce the precepts of our republic. We could see the individual right to keep and bear arms steamrolled by the riled emotions and reactionary movements of March for Our Lives. So I end that all out by saying the feelings of these people are valid. Their loss is real, and yes, we care. I care. My heart breaks for them. Yours does too, I hope. But men cannot be governed through emotion. We must fix reason firmly in her seat and govern for the good of all Americans, deliberately and with great care, for our individual rights and individual protections, and most of all, our individual responsibility. And responsibility for that horrible crime does not lie with the gun-holding public, with the law-abiding gun owners in this country. It lies with the incredibly disturbed man who committed this horrible crime. Additionally, it could be applied to the officers of public safety in the FBI who failed to act. But let's not speak too harshly. There's investigation still needed there. But let's put the responsibility where it is. Is there negligence? I'm certain there is at some level. I'm certain this could have been prevented. And that is what we should be focusing on. Why this was not prevented at the multiple stages it could have been. Not seeking an assault weapons ban when one cannot easily determine what an assault weapon even is based on current poll results. Most people don't have a good definition of what an assault weapon is or is not. There are videos everywhere and reports everywhere of people referring to full semi-auto. Basically taking full auto and semi-auto and making a portmanteau that doesn't make any sense. Or people referring to military-grade weapons when the AR-15 is not used by any military in the world that I'm aware of. We cannot allow our passions to govern. And take a quick break. When we come back, we have to talk about the omnibus bill. And where has the fiscal conservatism gone? You're listening to the HoloNet Podcast on the Lanterns Media Network. Stick around.
And imposed upon the patriotic people of this country a responsibility and a duty greater than that of any since the Civil War.
It is the common people of the world that are interested in this business. They know when we have war, it is they that have to bear the burden. It's their sisters and mothers and daughters that have to wait, trembling, to hear the news.
We are called as a people to give testimony in the sight of the world to our faith that the future shall belong to the free. Since this century's beginning, a time of tempest has seemed to come upon the continents of the earth.
I would remind you that extremism in the defense of liberty is no vice. And let me remind you also that moderation in the pursuit of justice is no virtue.
I want the people of America to be able to work less for the government and more for themselves. I want them to have the rewards of their own industry. This is the chief meaning of freedom. Until we can reestablish a condition under which the earnings of the people can be kept by the people, we are bound to suffer a very severe and distinct curtailment of our liberty.
You're listening to the HoloNet podcast on the Lanterns Media Network. The new conservative resistance begins right here, right now.
Allied reinforcements have arrived from the west.
You're listening to the HoloNet on Lanterns Media Network. The Millennial Conservative Resistance begins here.
And we're back. You're listening to the HoloNet podcast here on the Lanterns Media Network. If you want to join the conversation, we are on Facebook Live. That's facebook.com/HoloNet. We're also on Twitter at the HoloNet. And as always, you can find us on lanterns.buzz. That's holonet.lanterns.buzz. And of course, theholonet.com. Now, we get down to it. The Omnibus Bill. Oh, my Lord. I don't know what we're really going to do about this. I don't know what we can do about this at this stage. A little while back, I put out a show where I talked about President Donald Trump's tax plan being a good plan, but only and only if it is followed up by budget reduction and deficit reduction, making the government smaller, taking just a sledgehammer to the federal budget. But no, of course that couldn't happen. No. Instead, we get a 2,200-page colossus. As Senator Rand Paul called it, a budget-busting bomb. Now, if you didn't have the chance to check out Senator Rand Paul's Twitter, I recommend you do so, because he ran this through. I mean, the entire evening of the vote, he was tweeting the omnibus. He had some wonderful bullet points to call out there, and I mean, this is some solid stuff. All 2,232 budget-busting pages, which was received by the senator, according to his Twitter account, on March 22nd, late in the evening. Lovely picture of him holding it. According to this, his team started at 8:02 a.m. on March 22nd. And it had to print for 2 hours. He said, "Shame, shame, a pox on both houses." Waxing Shakespearean. And parties. 1.3 trillion bust budget caps. 2,200 pages with just hours to try and read it. Once again, a bill that you won't know what's in it until you pass it, my lord. Well, isn't this exactly the kind of crap that we railed against under the Obama administration and that we would never have tolerated under anybody else? But now, because it's President Trump's baby, oh, it's okay, it's all right. Because it's on the Trump train. And I'm sorry, if I see one more person on Facebook say, if you're against Trump now, because of the budget bill, just go ahead and unfriend me. Deleted. I mean, I've never been a firm Trump backing, everything he says is gold supporter. I back him when he's good, and I let him know when he's doing something wrong. And even when you get on TV and say, I wanted to veto it. But everything that's in there for the military is just so good. It's wonderful things for our military. Even when you jump out and point out all the things that the budget bill is going to do for the military and how it's going to give pay raises to the military. Does our military need pay raises? Yes. Do they need new equipment? Yes. Is it worth blowing up the budget when they haven't had it in 8 years? I'm sorry, but I think I would say we're going to do it, but we got to do it in like 6 months. Because I can't sign this thing. I cannot sign a bill that funds Planned Parenthood, that funds sanctuary cities, that does not pay for our border protections. I would have vetoed the sucker. If he would have come out on Facebook Live, just like he did, the whole press conference with the bill sitting right there, with the header that, the president's going to sign the bill, and then said, You know what? No, not going to do it. And shoved the bill, the stack of 2,200 papers, off the desk. Let it hit the floor. This man would have gone down in history as a conservative hero. Missed opportunity, man. Missed opportunity. Where's that Trump? Where's the Trump that was strutting around like cock of the walk in all of his campaign opportunities, but when he has the chance, when he has the opportunity to be a true bad, where is he? Where's he at? I would have lit the thing on fire. Torched it. I would have held a press conference on the White House lawn with a cheap hibachi grill that I got at Walmart for $30. Hashtag not a sponsor. Sat that some in there. Used about 4 cans of lighter fluid. Just grinning at the camera. Just cheesing the whole time. Like squeeze. Squeeze. Entire can of lighter fluid. Dropped one match on it. Flambe. Budget. Gone. Consider that my freaking veto. But no. Because we are an instant gratification society now, we had to pass it because we needed that spending for our military because it's going to be huge. It's going to be bigly huge. Couple of things. I want to give a big shout out to Senator Rand Paul for being the only member of either house to sit there and put out bullet points of what this POS funds. So listen to this crap. Listen to this crap. $1 million for the Cultural Antiquities Task Force. What? $6.25 million for the Ambassador's Fund for Cultural Preservation. Don't care. $20 million for countering foreign state propaganda. Wait. You mean like anti-Russia Today? Okay. $12 million for countering state disinformation and pressure. So what? $32 million to shut down RT? Huh. $5 million for Vietnam Education Foundation grants. Hang on. We're putting millions of dollars into educational grants in Vietnam? Is that part of a treaty I missed? $2.579 million for commission and security and cooperation in Europe. Okay, I thought NATO covered that, but anyway. $15 million in U.S. aid for promoting international higher education between universities. Wait, what? What kind of crap is that? My tax dollars? My tax dollars aren't just going to ASU to make sure they gouge for our rates and our tuitions. They're going to other countries' colleges to gouge them. Okay. $2.696 billion with a B in international disaster assistance. Okay, I realize that's a big umbrella, international disaster assistance, but I don't know, maybe we could put some money toward maybe turning the lights back on in San Juan, Puerto Rico. Can we do that? Is that a stretch? Maybe get the power grid working on the American island of Puerto Rico. Make that work, yep. $1 million for the World Meteorological Organization, $218 million for promoting democracy development in Europe. And yeah, Senator Rand Paul called bull on this one too. He said, yep, the birthplace of democracy needs promoting. Yeah, that's a good one. $25 million for international religious freedom, despite the fact that domestic religious freedom has been on the ropes for about the last 10 years. $10 million for disadvantaged Egyptian students. That's right. No, I didn't say Detroit students or Chicago students, because God, I can get behind that. No, Egyptian students. Okay. $12 million. It gets worse. Wait, put on the duct tape now. Wrap that son of a gun like 3 times around your forehead. You'll be all right. $12 million for scholarships for Lebanon. $20 million for the Middle East Partnership Initiative Scholarship Program. That's particularly valuable, especially in Syria, where most of the universities have been bombed to the ground. Yeah, that's a good idea. It's a good idea. $12 million in military funding for Vietnam, because nothing says cooperating with the Chinese like building up the Vietnamese military, which didn't we spend like a decade bombing them? $3.5 million in nutrition assistance to Laos. So food stamps in Laos, nice. $15 million in development assistance assistance to China. So hang on. We have a president who is ostensibly the toughest president on China since Nixon went over there. And we're sending them $15 million in developmental assistance? They're pretty flippin' developed. They're one of the biggest economies on the planet. What the hell do they need developmental assistance for? Are you kidding me? Maybe Beijing can part with the Somalians and send them over to their own dang inner cities. $15 million. $15 million? Send $15 million to South Phoenix. Maybe we'll have more of the billboards in English. Is that a thought? Maybe you'll be able to roll through downtown Tucson at 2 o'clock in the morning. Oh my God. All right. Gonna take a 2-minute break. When we come back, we're going to dive a little bit further into the collapse of fiscal conservatism here in the United States. You're listening to the HoloNet Podcast, Lanterns Media Network. Stick around.
It's true. Has it happened to you? 'Cause it starts with a dime and ends with $1. Makes me wanna get up and holler, hey, what has it happened to you? 'Cause it's happening all around and no one's making a sound about it. We gotta take back America, 1, 2, 3. Take back America, you and me. Take back America, or we're all screwed. The heart of America polluted by a mind of greed. It's true. Has it happened to you?
You're listening to the HoloNet Podcast on the Lanterns Media Network. The new conservative resistance begins right here, right now.
Allied reinforcements have arrived from the west.
You're listening to the HoloNet on Lanterns Media Network. The Millennial Conservative Resistance begins here.
And we're back. You're listening to the HoloNet Podcast here on the Lanterns Media Network. Coming back from the other side of our little break at the half-hour mark. If you're still with me, God love you. Appreciate it. Make sure you like, share, get the message out as fast as you can. Because, yeah, Lord knows the Facebook algorithm ain't helping me. But anyway, on the other side of the break here, we're talking about the omnibus. And go to Breitbart. And I may need to shower after this, but we go to Breitbart. Joel B. Pollack writes, Conservative hysteria over the omnibus is wrong and self-defeating. Interesting. Breitbart seems to be defending President Trump even when he's at his least conservative. So does that mean that Breitbart potentially is holding their loyalty to the Trump administration over their conservative values? Oh, man. All right, let's dig into this. Pollock writes, conservatives are understandably frustrated by the $1.3 trillion omnibus spending bill that President Trump signed into law under protest on Friday. Under protest. Like they had a gun to his head. This is the President of the United States. He doesn't have to do anything under protest. This is the same guy who said, shut the government down. Oh, why didn't you when it counted, you... The massive size of the bill makes a mockery of Republican promises since 2009 to restrain spending and return to balanced budget once they return to power. And I hear the sound of crickets in the background. The large number of giveaways to Democratic Party projects and special interests is a sign that the swamp is still alive and festering in the Trump era. The fact is that the 2,232-page bill was jammed down legislators' throats with literally no time to read it shows how little Washington has changed even after the Tea Party. And the lack of real funding for the border wall, Trump's core campaign promise in 2016, suggests that Trump is getting rolled by both parties. But the omnibus is not a disaster. In fact, Republicans scored many important wins. And he goes on to run through a grocery list of things that were included in the omnibus bill that were good. Military.com summarized that the Navy gets 14 new ships, including a carrier. The Air Force adds 56 F-35s. The Army gets 17 Apaches and 11 Lakotas. Those are helicopters, by the way. The Marine Corps receives 24 vertical landing F-35Bs, and the Coast Guard gets a long-needed icebreaker. Troops get funding for a 2.4% pay raise. Everybody is agreeing that the troops should get a raise here, folks, just not on the backs of the next 4 generations of Americans. The Air Force also gets $103 million for wing replacement on the A-10 Thunderbolt as a start of what Air Force Secretary Heather Wilson said earlier this week is a plan to keep the Warthogs flying at least until 2030 because it's just a good damn plane. I added that last part. Now, Breitbart and, what was this guy's name again? Mr. Pollock. Hope I'm pronouncing that right. It might be Pollock. Mr. Pollock, I think. Most conservatives, from skeptical libertarians to hawkish neoconservatives, agree that the national security is the first priority of government. The new spending bill will help the U.S. military catch up to the pace of Chinese expansion and keep other threats in check. So, hang on. You're telling me that getting military spending, which is something we should be able to do in a walk with a majority of both houses and a Republican president, is worth a $1.3 trillion budget-busting bill. Is that what you're trying to sell me here, Pollock? Now, this is a full-throated defense of the president. And they're saying conservatives should not be distracted by the gloating of Democrats like House Minority Leader Nancy Pelosi or the trolling of Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer. They know that declaring victory is a good way to separate Trump from his base. Of course it is! We got screwed, kids! This is the very definition of Trump apologism. This might as well have been written by the press secretary. Hell, might have been. Republicans prevented the bill from giving massive subsidies to insurance companies on the Obamacare exchanges. Guys, we voted for, we expect, nay, we require fiscal conservatism. If we don't have it, you can measure the economic viability of our country in years, not decades. And 1.3 trillion, we're going to be up to 30 trillion on the deficit very soon. This is unacceptable. To any self-respecting conservative, anyone who is not just dove head first into the tank, into the bag for President Trump. This should be unacceptable. This should make you sick to your stomach. And the president's protestations during his signing fell flat. They rang hollow in my ears. Because you are the President of the United States. The same man that said, shut the government down, and when it counted, you blinked. This is a missed opportunity. We have all the leverage. But we didn't have the spine for it, did we? Did we? And now, with all this funding locked in, funding for Planned Parenthood, funding for sanctuary cities, for college educations in the Middle East, we might as well have handed the Democrats the midterm election. Because this is a victory they will take home to their base. And a defeat they will carry all the way till 2020 to beat us over the head with. Should President Trump be worried? Yes, President Trump should be extremely worried. Because short of a balanced budget amendment, the hope for this country's fiscal solvency is getting dimmer and dimmer each day. Tax cuts are great, but only if you complete the other section of the equation. You must reduce the size of government. You must reduce government spending. I can't express my disappointment strong enough. I really can't. It was a blow. And everyone who voted for President Trump in 2016 should be coming out of their seats about this. But the dog whistle blows and we all perk up when we hear about gun control now under attack by the writhing masses of high school students demanding a day out of school, demanding a gun-free country, and then objecting to clear backpacks. It's difficult when we see the level of cronyism in Washington, D.C., when we see the swamp still very much in effect, appearing to draw the president in and swallow him whole. Beset by scandals left and right, and the machinations of the Democratic Party, still unable to shake the stigma of Russian interference in the election. How much has gone unnoticed in the news in the past 2 weeks? How much have we not reported on, or have we not paid enough bandwidth to? I mean, think about it. A Russian spy, a former Russian spy, and his daughter living in the UK were poisoned with nerve gas. And the UK is putting some strong talk in front of Russia right now. And the EU is completely in lockstep, both absolutely assured that this man was killed by a Soviet-era neurotoxin, which Russia denies. Where's President Trump on this? Some cases in history, the silence is deafening. So we'll take a quick break, and then we're going to wrap up today's show. You've stuck with me this long, hang out with me for 15 more minutes. You're listening to the HoloNet Podcast here on the Lanterns Media Network. Stick around.
Allied reinforcements have arrived from the west.
You're listening to the HoloNet on Lanterns Media Network. The Millennial Conservative Resistance begins here.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, you're listening to the HoloNet podcast here on the Lanterns Media Network. I'm your host, Matt Holloway. Now, we're about to bring this hour of the HoloNet podcast to a close, and before we do, we want to check in on Trends 24 and see what's trending here in the United States today. Right now, trending number one on Twitter is Stormy Daniels Day. I mentioned before how the Trump campaign seems to be beset by scandal. This one just does not appear to be going away. So that is trending number one on Twitter right now, and it is the static that is drowning out anything good that President Trump and the Republicans in Congress may be able to accomplish during this president's term, and it is the successful drumbeat of the left and of the DNC. Now, I know many people have said we elected the man president, we didn't elect him as pastor, but still, we have to wonder how much of these allegations are true, and how much does it bear upon the presidency itself? Time will tell. But this, again, is a controversy that's not going away anytime soon. Again, we go through and we're seeing more and more tweets pertaining to the NCAA championship. And really, nothing else of note. Hashtag Palm Sunday's up there. But I really have to say, it amazes me, the short attention span of our people. The fact that we could be grabbed so hard by a story and then forget it 5 minutes later. How we can lose track of something as crucial as our right to defend ourselves because of these fits and starts, these momentary manic ferments where we suddenly jump up and say, oh, we have to seize all the automatic rifles. Our founders were right. The American people are a passionate people. And we cannot allow those passions to govern us. We must govern through reason. We must govern through law in order to respect and protect the rights of the individual man, woman, and child from the whims of the majority. And if you ever want to see how just insane our country can be, look at what trends on Twitter in a given day. I mean, our attention span is so wildly short. The news cycle is so insanely fast now that we have to choose very carefully what we pay attention to and what we choose to fight for, where we place our advocacy and our activism. And I will place mine on the firm bedrock foundation of the Constitution and the wisdom of our founding fathers and the grace of God above. Believe what you will, but believe it, and be true to your own beliefs. You're not going to go very wrong. So coming up next week, a couple of news stories to keep an eye on. Again, Stormy Daniels. I'm sure we're going to see more information about the Russian assassination of their former spy. So look for increasing tensions between the UK, the EU, and Russia. There appear to be continued firings in the Trump administration, more shuffling of the staff, and that's dominating the news cycle. Right now, New York Times says Trump won't hire two lawyers whose appointments were announced days ago. DeGenova and Tonsing not joining Trump's Russia legal team after all. I'm sure that's going to continue to carry the news, because anything that makes the president look bad tends to carry the news cycle. More on the Spain-Catalonia independence debate Apparently there have been mass protests in Germany after Germany detained the ex-Catalan leader. So more destabilization of the EU. And the Facebook controversy regarding the sale of user data for political purposes continues. So all that to look forward to in the coming weeks, stories to keep your eye on. But trust in Facebook seems to be plummeting. And I'm pretty sure that's going to stay with us for quite some time. Not going to jump on the delete Facebook bandwagon here. But we do have to consider who holds our information and what they can do with it. Can they swing a whole election? Can they swing the country? And how can we utilize a Republican system of government in order to protect from it? All right, folks. That's it for today. Good night. God bless you, and God bless the United States of America. From Phoenix, I'm Matt Holloway.
You're listening to the Lanterns Radio Network. We are the network dedicated to empowering the individual, illuminating the truth, defending American exceptionalism, and inspiring future generations. Stay connected and get involved at lanterns.buzz for great radio. Get commentary and news of the day. Lanterns.buzz.